Hello and welcome. This is Pam. Today we are going to be discussing how myself and many other wellness champions are recovering from multiple sclerosis by treating the parasites that are causing the MS. And really, parasites do cause disease, and the sicker we are, the more infested we are with parasites. So if we just have gut issues, we are not going to be dealing with the same level of a parasite infection as if we have chronic disease like multiple sclerosis or others. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you what I have done, the steps I've taken, but also the steps that many wellness champions have taken to successfully treat parasites. That means to recover from multiple sclerosis. So we're not talking about living with disease or managing sickness. We are talking about recovering. And it does take work and it does take very specific steps. So I am a health coach and I'm an educator. I am not a practitioner. So everything that I'm going to share with you is only for educational purposes. It is not intended to replace the necessary measures of your healthcare professional. So what I would like to do is, first of all, let me backtrack for a minute, because some of you may not have met me yet. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis over 30 years ago. And by the grace of God and learning about infections, learning about parasites, and treating them effectively enough, that has allowed me to live over 30 years free of MS. Since that time, years ago, I went back to school, got a science degree. I was a teacher, and then I left the school district because my heart and my passion was to really educate other people so they could get their health and their life back like I did. So we have coached over 1,000 students in the Live Disease-Free system, the Live Disease-Free plan. So we have amazing insights that I want to share with you. I just spoke with a lady today, and she's a mom. She has 6 kids, and she has multiple sclerosis. And she said when she heard my videos about talking about that there is a known cause and you can recover, she just cried, because for the first time, because she's been following lots of different people, trying different diets, trying different supplements, and nothing has worked for her really. And so she's never tried to treat parasites. And we're going to talk all about this. So what I want you to understand is literally your starting point, where you're starting from, what you are up against, what you're dealing with, and then the steps that we take to recover. And then I have lots of amazing successes, not here, but I've got them listed. I just actually did a short video on testimonies, just little short clips from our students, and we posted that up on our Live Disease-Free YouTube channel. You can listen to them after. You can go to our website, Live Disease-Free. You can hear their voices. You will have tears of joy when you hear their successes. You can also go to Live Disease-Free YouTube channel, the successes of the wellness champions, and there you can also hear their voices. So today we're going to talk about what did they do? What are they doing? How are they recovering? And it is a very exciting time. We just had World MS Day yesterday. I believe it was yesterday or the day before. And so it's time. It's time to start looking at a different approach. So we're going to talk all about that in this video here. Before we get started, I just wanted to share, or I should say define, a few terms that you might not be familiar with. So the first one that I want to explain to you is what dysbiosis means. It's been listed in my book that I wrote many years ago, or quite a few years ago, Become a Wellness Champion. I was talking about this already over 10 years ago. And now the science is just exploding in the world of MS, but other chronic diseases also. So we are in a state of dysbiosis, meaning that we are really out of balance. We have too many disease-causing microbes, which we call parasites, and not enough health-promoting microbes, which defend us and protect us. And so we're going to, instead of just talking about infections, we're going to talk about parasites. And a parasite is anything that lives in you and causes you harm. So it's not just worms. It can be single-celled parasites or protists. It can be different types of fungi or different fungus like yeast. So yeasts or molds. It can also be different types of bacteria and possibly even viruses. So there are many different types of microbes that are parasites, not just worms, because I know a lot of us think about worms when we think about a parasite, but worms are parasites. And then when we talk about worms, they're not just round worms, but there's flat worms, there's tapeworms. So there's many different types of worms too. Some of them are so small you can't see them. Some of them are upwards of 2 feet long or even longer, depending on the type of worm we're dealing with. So that is truly what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a state of dysbiosis. And then the other thing I wanted to just define is inflammation. Inflammation is always present in chronic disease. With every single chronic disease, there's inflammation. And we know that infections cause inflammation also. And also injury does. Like if you fall and you cut yourself or you scrape your knee, then you have redness and swelling and pain. That is inflammation also. It's your immune system responding to injury or infection. So if we have all this inflammation, and let's actually go to the MS Society's definition of multiple sclerosis. So from their own website, they say multiple sclerosis is a chronic inflammatory disease of unknown cause. So 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with MS. We still don't know what causes it. So they're saying it's unknown cause where the immune system attacks the central nervous system. The myelin, which is the fatty tissue around our nerves, and the cells that make myelin seem to be impacted the most, but our axons, the center of the nerve, are also damaged. So something is damaging our nerves, our nerve cells. So the center, the axon, but also the myelin. And this is where I want to stop for a minute. And if you are new to my work, make sure that you go over to Live Disease Free YouTube channel. And there you will find a playlist about infections, MS and infections. So through the work of Dr. Alan McDonald, he has found filarial worms in every single MS case tested in their central nervous system. 10 out of 10, many worms. And I've talked about that on many videos where these worms, when they're present in the central nervous system of domestic animals, they have all the symptoms of MS. He also found juvenile, immature, actually, before I say that, it's immature developing larvae of tapeworms. And he also found juvenile, so the actual tapeworm developing in the central nervous system of MS patients. Then you can find all this on our website, livediseasefree.com. Also, go there after, and it's under the main menu. There's evidence that multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease. So when you click on that, you'll see that there are many studies for years and years finding higher incidence of candida with multiple sclerosis. And they're even finding candida and different types of fungi in the brain cells, like right in the nucleus of the brain cells even, with MS patients. So we know we have fungus in the central nervous system. We know we have these filarial worms. We could even have tapeworms. Then I did another video on Lyme just recently, the Borrelia, for example. And they've been finding these corkscrew type bacteria, which is what Borrelia is, and that's the bacteria that causes Lyme. They've been finding it in the central nervous system of MS patients since 1911 or even earlier. And there are so many studies published. So I painted a picture, and that's what I really try to do, is paint a picture for you of where we're starting. So we are starting with being out of balance. And if you want to understand how you got out of balance, that you can learn in my masterclass training also after, and I'll share that later. So we get out of balance. We have too many of these disease-causing microbes, not enough health-promoting microbes. Then as it starts, they're not that populated in the body and we don't have serious chronic disease. But over time, especially when we're eating processed carbs, because that's their favorite food, and maybe we have high stress, maybe we're not getting enough sleep, maybe we're using certain medications, but there are many different reasons why these disease-causing microbes can become more populated, and then we end up with chronic disease. Then the inflammation, think about the inflammation is the war zone. It is the battle where your immune system is fighting these disease-causing parasites, and oh dear, it's gone black. Interesting. Hold on one sec here. That is really weird. Okay, interesting. There we go. Let's see where I'm. Okay, I have a different, it's not as nice of a camera, but I will have to use that one then. Okay, let's see if that'll work. Apologize for that. For some reason, my camera just stopped working. That's really odd. Okay, so let's get back to, so the inflammation is the war zone. This is where your immune system is fighting these infections. And again, we're dealing with multiple infections, different types of infections, and they're very happy in our body. There's a lot of food, there's moisture, it's warm, and there are many ways that these infections cause immune dysfunction. And I've talked about that on my masterclass training. So sometimes they have ways to kind of hide from the immune system. They hide under biofilms. There's other ways. There's 17 different ways. So as they become more populated in our body, then we end up with disease. And so I want to share with you just a few studies, and this you can look on your own. And I understand a lot of us don't have a lot of background in science, and that's fine. You don't need a lot of background in science. But what you need is you need to understand that this is a huge, exploding field of research that is in the science field. And why are our neurologists not talking about this? Why is the media not talking about this? Why are we not looking to see which types of infections are the most common problem with people that have MS? So I just spent literally less than 5 minutes and I just did a Google search, and I just went into PubMed, and that is a medical database, but you can even just do it in, just do multiple sclerosis and dysbiosis. So that's Dysbiosis. And I'll just read off just a few different studies that I found within minutes here. So the chicken or the egg dilemma, intestinal dysbiosis in multiple sclerosis, 2017. 2019, gut dysbiosis and lack of short-chain fatty acids in Chinese cohort of patients with multiple sclerosis. Another 2019 study, gut environmental factors and multiple sclerosis. Another 2019 study, interactions between gut microbiota, dysbiosis, and multiple sclerosis. 2020, alterations in circulating fatty acids are associated with gut microbiota, dysbiosis, and inflammation in multiple sclerosis, 2020. Another 2020, gut dysbiosis and multiple sclerosis. Another 2021, correcting gut dysbiosis can ameliorate inflammation and promote remyelination in multiple sclerosis, 2021. Gut commensals dysbiosis and immune response imbalance in the pathogenesis of multiple sclerosis. That's a 2021. 2021, detection of dysbiosis and increased intestinal permeability in Brazilian patients with relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. So just in the past, most of them are 2019 and 2020, 2021. And I literally spent less than 5 minutes. And remember, dysbiosis means that your microbes in your body are out of balance. You have too many disease-causing microbes, not enough health-promoting microbes. And this research is now exploding in science. And there's a disconnect between what's going on in science and how we are being treated, or even what the researchers are looking for. I know that they've been focused on viruses a lot. They've also been focused on bacteria. They really are not looking a lot yet at parasites, which is really unfortunate. I mean worms, I should say, because they're all parasites, but worms and protists. And there's just so much to this that I'll just keep it as focused as possible. So again, we're starting off with we're out of balance, and that's why we're never going to have a single cure. We're never going to find that one pill that will kill worms, and it will kill protists, and it will kill different types of fungi and different types of bacteria. It's never going to happen. And so that's why we can't wait for a cure. We're not going to have a cure in our lifetime. If we want to get our health and our life back, we literally have to focus on taking charge of our health and restoring balance ourselves. And it's not that hard. Our wellness, that's what we're doing. And that's what I wanted to share with you. And again, I apologize for the camera. It's never done that before. I have no idea what happened. So again, really knowing the state that you're in is really important to recover, because if you think you're going to pop a parasite pill and get better, you're not. The parasite drugs, they're helpful, but there are limitations. So we have to understand that we have infection in the gut, a huge amount of infection in the gut. And we know that I've talked on different videos about the gut-brain axis, where the microbes that are the different types of disease-causing microbes, parasites that are in the intestines, they can infect the central nervous system. They can affect our nerves in the central nervous system. They also produce toxins that cross the blood-brain barrier. So even if they're not present there, they can impact our nerves in the central nervous system. And then we do know that many of them go into the central nervous system. And that was shared through, I just shared with you Dr. Alan McDonald's work. Just go on our website, Live Disease Free, under evidence that MS is an infectious disease. And you'll see tons of research with Lyme, with worms, with different types of fungi, bacteria, etc. So then we have to consider, I'm just going to move over here. So number one, our doctors are not they're not trained in identifying or treating parasites. So that's a really big problem. They believe, and they've been told in their schooling, that parasites are an issue in third world countries. If that is true, how do our pets get parasites, right? If there are no parasites in North America or in the developed countries, how do our pets get parasites? So we know that parasites can come on produce from other countries. We know that we can pass them from one person to the next. Let's say if you go into a restaurant and somebody has parasites, people are traveling all over the world. So somebody prepares your food and maybe they didn't wash their hands, or maybe it came in on the produce. Maybe you're working in the garden. Maybe you have animals. Maybe you like to eat sushi, right? And supposedly there shouldn't be a lot of parasites in sushi, but I'm sure there are. So it's just part of life. We're exposed to parasites, but we have always been told that there's no such a problem. So that's why our doctors have been trained not to think it's a problem. And secondly, they don't have good tests. So even when they're curious and even when they want to help us, they don't have good tests. They're not able to identify which of the parasites we have. So remember, there are hundreds of different types of fungi that can make us sick. There's hundreds of worms. There's many types of worms. There are many types of bacteria. So in our lifetime, please don't expect there to be this magic where they find, oh, well, it's these 5 or 4 different parasites that are usually the main problem with MS, because we're not even there yet. I know that there are some researchers doing this, but it's just, there's not enough attention going into this. There are DNA tests, but at this point, they're not worth the cost, what we would spend on them. So with our students, we don't recommend that they do a lot of testing, because you can spend $6,000 to $10,000 on testing and you have very little information that's meaningful to show for it. And also with supplements. So this is why there is a strategic plan that we follow, and that is the Live Disease Free Strategic Plan. So with that plan, we have to take that step back, and we have to remember our starting point. And that's why I shared that with you. It's really important to make sure you understand what's going on in your body. What are you dealing with? You're not just dealing with Lyme. You're not just dealing with Borrelia. You're not just dealing with filarial worms. You're not just dealing with Candida, right? You're dealing with multiple infections, and they are deep-rooted into your body. So if you're just using herbs, that's not going to affect your central nervous system. It's not going to deal with the bigger parasites. And so this is what we've developed over the years of working with so many different wellness champions from all over the world in their recovery from not just MS, but other chronic diseases also. So the first step is immune modulation. And that is really important. So remember, we talked about inflammation. Inflammation is the one thing they tell us about with MS and other diseases. That's the one thing they know. So how can we modulate the immune system? Well, what kind of things can we do naturally that are cost effective, that we can really get those infections so they're less active? Well, stop feeding them so much. So their favorite food is carbohydrates. And so as you decrease the carbs enough, you notice that they are less active, we have less inflammation, and we start to feel better. We start to have symptom improvement. And that's really important for a successful parasite treatment. If you keep feeding them and then you just try to treat them, it just doesn't work very well. We know, we've worked with enough students. The next step is, the next part of this immune modulation is not just diet, but it is supporting your body also. So this is where we really help to open up the detox pathways. We support our physiology. We make sure we're getting enough nutrition. We decrease things in the environment. The two big ones we start with are making sure we don't have mold in our environment and also decreasing the wireless radiation. So right now we have 5G almost everywhere, and that really impacts these infections. It makes them grow quicker and produce more poisons. It makes them more virulent. So we have to clean up our environment. And yes, it's great to use some natural cleaners and natural makeup, all of that. But the big ones would be the mold and the radiation. Those are huge. And the radiation, we might not think about it, but most of our newer appliances are smart. So we have all of this wireless radiation, even in our home. It's not just what's coming out from outside in, it's also what is in our home, from our cell phones, from our computers, from all our appliances. So this is something we have to address. So if you can, try to get, I call them dumb appliances. So we had to replace a couple of appliances, and we went for, I say, I don't want a smart appliance, I want a dumb appliance. And there's very few on the market. So we actually have been buying some used appliances because we want our home to be a sanctuary. We don't need smart appliances. And yes, I still work behind a computer, but I have an Ethernet cable. And I still work on my phone, but I use a corded phone, a landline. And so I try to use my cell phone as little as possible.